If he was healthy beginning of the season, do we think James Robinson would have the breakout he's having?
What's up, Guff? Grown-up fantasy football has arrived once again. Joey Marino, James Reiner, Zach Maziarz. We're back in business, and hey, we've noticed that the grown-up fantasy football, the Guff gang, has grown. Thank you so much for all the subscriptions and all the likes, all the comments you guys have been pouring your heart and soul into our videos, and we greatly appreciate that.
It makes me feel good that they've come after my terminal illness that miraculously recovered from subscribers. So I feel in part that it was because of the fans just really wanting my health to be better. So thank you.
Yeah, you guys are awesome.
You really are. So thank you
heroes.
so much. You are, exactly. You're the real heroes of Guff. But today, we are stepping out of the Fantasy Showdown arena for a bit, and we are going to be talking about the top 5 waiver ads of the season. So up to this point, who are the top 5 guys that you've plucked off of the waiver wire and straight into your lineup? Give me the top 5. Boys, is there anything else we need to add before we get into this?
I don't think so. I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
I think so too. Oh, one thing, be sure to, if you haven't already, to like and subscribe, because Zach still needs them and we still need them. If you like seeing this kind of fantasy content, be sure to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell icon to get notified whenever we're posting. But I think it's time we get into today's topic.
There we go. Got to clear my throat for this big one. Today's number 5 top waiver wire of the season so far, we have a Mr. T. Rex Higgins. T. Higgins of the Cincinnati Bengals. So, guys, I was looking at his numbers a little bit, okay? And really stat-wise, like, he's been doing great. His just overall analysis of him is just middle of the road. It's not that great. It's just kind of average. But he is on the second highest passing offense right now in terms of pass plays. So the opportunity is for sure there. After basically 2 weeks, he didn't really do much. And then week 3, he had his emergence. After that, he has only scored below 10 points one time. And that was an 8-point game. So since then, he's basically had an 18-point game, 11-point game, 8, 15, 16, and 11. So he has been a very serviceable flex for you, if not a fill-in wide receiver too for certain weeks where you might not have a wide receiver. So he has been phenomenal for you. He has been lights out. He has honestly stepped into that A.J. Green role that we were anticipating A.J. Green to have. So what do you guys think of T. Higgins as our number 5 waiver pickup so far this season?
Go ahead, James.
Oh, okay. Like you said, he's not that. It's not the gold mine like Kamara was when he broke out or anything, but he's a serviceable flex, and he's consistent and gives you a safe floor every week, and you're glad you picked him up if you did. You know, he's not one of those guys you picked up one week and then drop him the next because you learned he's actually just complete poop. But what were your thoughts, Joey? You like T. Higgins?
I do. I agree. He is not complete poop. He is... I wouldn't say, though, he's stepping into that A.J. Green role. I think Tyler Boyd is more evolving into more of the A.J. Green role. But T. Higgins is tremendous talent coming out of college. And, yeah, for somebody that you got right off the waiver wire, he's someone that you can plug and play just about every week. He's kind of reminiscent of, like, DJ Chark last year. But, yeah, a great ad off the waiver wire. Moving on to number 4, This guy came onto the scene after a particular injury to what probably was the number 1 pick in your draft. That's right. We're talking about Mr. Mike Davis.
Gardner Minshew?
Oh, wait. Excuse me. Yeah. If you wanted that Bud Light, then you drafted him. But we're talking about Mike Davis, running back for the Carolina Panthers. He came in for CMC after he went on the IR with that ankle injury in week 2. And he was a terrific PPR league ad. He is currently the running back 12 on the season. So you got a RB1 off the waiver wire. I'm not going to go into all of his stats and everything, but he's only seen fewer than 3 targets in a game twice since the season started. He's averaging 4.2 yards on the ground and 6.5 in the air. He's been great. He's only scored 4 touchdowns, however. But the volume in the passing game is still there, and it's more than what everybody expected. I know that we weren't predicting Mike Davis to be a great coming in for Christian McCaffrey, but he's been really good overall. He has Detroit, Minnesota, and Green Bay all left on the schedule, and like we saw in last week's game against Kansas City, CMC went down with another injury. So Mike Davis could be in line for another big role for the coming weeks. What do you guys think of Mike Davis?
This was not a sexy pickup at all. I'll tell you that. But if you did pick him up, I know a lot of people spent a lot of fab, first waiver priority if they had CMC when he went down. And he has really, now granted CMC puts up ridiculous numbers, but he's been a phenomenal spot, check for CMC being injured. Like you said, Joey, he is coming in not only for an injured CMC, but CMC might miss some more time with an injury. So that also makes him fairly reliable. I hope you didn't drop him after this week. But another thing that's kind of strikes me is that I think he still had 6 receptions playing with CMC. So that's a little bit safe of a floor. I don't want to jump ahead of myself and be like, okay, you got to throw him in your flex every week, but 6 receptions with CMC in there right now, and then on top of that, CMC getting hurt again, they might try and split the workload a little bit more to a 70-30 type thing moving forward, just because they want to keep CMC healthy. So I don't know. This is, definitely during the bulk of the season, it's been a phenomenal pickup, but we might actually see going towards the rest of the season, it still might be a pretty serviceable pickup as well. So I'd definitely hold on to him, but I agree. He's been phenomenal for you.
Yeah, he's exceeded expectations. I imagine the bulk of people who have him on their team were the CMC owners, and you have to be happy with what you got from Mike Davis. I mean, he's extremely consistent, great floor. And all that passing work really helps boost his points each week. He's been phenomenal, and I think he'd be an RB1 for the whole season if CMC didn't play, for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You really, speaking of that, you bring up a good point, because you really did luck out if you were the CMC owner getting Mike Davis. Because if you think of the flip side, Saquon Barkley out for the year, who'd you pick up? Dion Lewis, Wayne Gallman, maybe Devontae Freeman, no one putting up the same numbers that Mike Davis is. Yeah, none of them panned out, so you basically just lost a good RB1. Mike Davis has actually been an RB1 for you, so.
Yeah, he's been great. Moving on to number 3, Justin Jefferson. He is the wide receiver 22 right now in half-point PPR. Just real quick, his points over the weeks, 3.6, 5.9, 27, 12.3, 3.8, 35.1, 4.1, 7.9. Ever since they moved him to the outside, he's been great, and he's been producing each week. He was a first-round guy in the NFL draft. Everyone knew he was talented, but I don't think anyone expected this type of production from him in his first year. And he's been one of the top targets for Kirk Cousins each week. And I think he's someone you can start every week and expect wide receiver 2 numbers. Most people probably have him as a wide receiver 3 on their team, so he's really helping people out. The only thing with him, Dalvin Cook, he's going to cut into his production. Kirk Cousins doesn't need to throw the ball if Dalvin Cook is scoring 4 touchdowns a game. So that's the only concern going forward. But so far, I think he's the best pickup for the wide receiver position this year. What are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, you went through the points real quick, and he's kind of a boom or bust guy, is what it looks like, But I think that's dependent on Kirk Cousins, really, because he can produce if given the volume. And, he's exploded. He exploded against Atlanta. He exploded against Tennessee. He's got Carolina remaining on the schedule, Dallas still, Jacksonville. He's got some favorable matchups coming up. The talent is really there. And I mentioned this with T. Higgins, but I think it's maybe more accurate comp with Justin Jefferson for DJ Chark, because DJ Chark last year was more of a boom or bust kind of guy. He could give you, a 25-point game, but then followed up next week with like 7 or so. But, we've seen this. Wide receivers is one of the hardest positions to adjust to coming out of college. But we've seen Justin Jefferson and T. Higgins look really, really good in their rookie year. Zach, what do you think?
No, yeah, I think he's definitely playing lights out. I actually like talking the Dalvin Cook side of things. Dalvin Cook, first of all, is like Atlas holding up the world, except the world is the Vikings football team, because like he literally just carrying them on his back. But in terms of that, Joey, I know you're saying Justin Jefferson's kind of boom or bust. I'd actually rather have Justin Jefferson getting the yardage. I know Adam Thielen draws a lot of targets. He is that veteran wide receiver, but if you're not going to be throwing the ball as much because Dalvin Cook's kind of taking over, give me the bigger opportunity to get yards. Give me the more air yards in an offense rather than, okay, well, hey, you're getting 5 catches a game, getting more targets, and you're turning them into like 40 yards or so. Like, give me the air yards. You get 1 catch, but it's for a good 30-plus yards. I'll take that, especially in a concern of, having a run-first type offense that's led by a very good running back. But also, Guff Gang, kind of keep an eye out, because we might actually do a little showdown between Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen if you guys are up for that. So,
But yeah, you bring up you bring up the boomer bust, and I think it works for this year because where you got him is off the waiver wire, or maybe in last round in the draft, just taking a flyer on him. He's not your wide receiver 2. He wasn't drafted as your wide receiver 2, and he wasn't drafted as your wide receiver 1. But he can put up those wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 1 numbers. So yeah, I think you're spot on with that. In an offense that runs through the running back, I would like that boomer bust guy like A.J. Brown per se, maybe CEH almost. Tyreek Hill, excuse me. Those guys that can bust off, a 90-yard touchdown or something.
Yep.
All right, moving on to number 2, we have Justin Herbert. And we've talked about this guy so much. We all love him. He's a must-start every week. He's the quarterback 12 in 4-point QB leagues. And that's including a bye week and the game he missed as not the starter. I mean, he's been phenomenal. He's only had less than 21 points in 1 game. Every week he's producing. He's extremely talented. He's going to be a great quarterback going in the future, and he's going to carry a lot of teams. And he's that quarterback this year. When we did our video, who's this year's Lamar Jackson, and we all say Cam Newton, it's Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert is going off this year, and he's going to help a lot of teams win a lot of games. Anything else to add to Herbert?
I mean, you're pretty spot on. I love the comp with Cam Newton, because originally we said, hey, Cam Newton's going to be this year's Lamar. You still spent a draft pick on him. Justin Herbert, unless you're in a 2 QB league, you probably picked him up off waiver wire because everyone thought Tyrod Taylor was going to start. No one really thought the entire season, but we're seeing lights out play by Justin Herbert. It's phenomenal to see what he can do, and it really is phenomenal to see that we're going to have him for years to come in the NFL. But yeah, I'm loving it. I'm loving his legs. He's got some design runs his way. He's got some rushing touchdowns. I'm loving to see him spread the ball out and just make everybody on that team a weapon. So yeah, it's great. And this is kind of one of the things that we always say to instead of waiting on a QB, or I'm sorry, instead of drafting QB early, to wait on a QB. And this is a prime example of being able to not only stream QBs and then be serviceable, but even pick a QB up off waivers after the first couple of weeks, especially after matchups. Some people are hesitant based on matchups the first couple of weeks to roster a QB, or maybe they'll drop one after a couple of good games and they see a bad schedule. So, yeah, he's just the clear definition of waiting on a QB because he is paying you that fantasy gold right now.
Mm-hmm. And some matchups he's got coming up, the Jets, Atlanta, Vegas. He's got some pretty sweet matchups. And honestly, he's kind of been matchup proof. I mean, he's played New Orleans and Tampa Bay, still scored 27 and 23 points against them. I mean, the guy's pretty much playing lights out. I think you're spot on with the Cam Newton comp that we gave, as the next Lamar Jackson. It's Justin Herbert. And I think the only other thing I'll add is the only reason he's not number one on this list is because you can still get points out of this quarterback position. But it's much harder to find points out of the position of the first player on this list.
Yes, but first, Joey, let's give some honorable mentions. They're participants. They're participants in this. So we decided to throw out a couple of names. We wanted to list them, but ultimately we thought just based on value, just based on when you got them and how they've been doing recently and course of the whole season, but also maybe them hopefully doing well the rest of the season, we decided not to include them, but they're still here honorably mentioned. So we have Christian Kirk. He's been playing lights out recently. Beginning of the season kind of started slow, so that's kind of why we're adding him here. But he's been playing phenomenal now. We have Travis Fulgham. I really actually struggled with Travis Fulgham or T. Higgins being placed on this list. Travis Fulgham, though, I think we have to kind of wait and see still, but by all means, it looks like he is really producing and really going to be that number one there. Darrell Henderson, what can you say about him? He's hopefully the number one, but it's a RBC committee. I don't know, so that's why. Chase Edmonds, and then possibly Russell Gage. We still have to figure that out. Probably not. Joey wanted to include that. He's a huge Falcons fan, so
that's right.
Yeah,
number one of Falcons fan.
I'd rather not include him. But finally, without further ado, our number one top waiver pickup this season, and I think we're mid-season right now. I think by the end of the season, they will still be the number one. I don't think there's anyone that's going to take this away from him or her. Who knows? But our number one is James Robinson. James Reiner. It's James Robinson.
I've done it. Yes.
He is the running back 5 on the year right now. He is number one in opportunity share with 83.7%. He has 481 rush yards on the season, 27 receptions for 225 receiving yards, which is actually third in the league. And what I love the most about him is that he was an early season pickup. So a lot of these waiver pickups we're talking about took 3 games, took 4 games, maybe picked him up in week 5. So you didn't get as many games out of them. James Robinson, we knew at the beginning of the season he was the starting back. They announced it, which their depth chart, I know some stuff came out about depth chart that was kind of wrong, but we knew James Robinson was a flyer to try and pick up, see how he was going to do. I'm not going to lie, at first I wasn't too high on him. I didn't think it was going to be this much of a bell cow type situation, but you had him, if you picked him up before the season started, you have had the RB5 the entire season. And he's been phenomenal, and the Jaguars are showing that they are still an average team that can move the ball sometimes, but they want to rely heavily on their RB, which is what they are doing. And right now he's averaging 15 carries a game, and on top of that he is being heavily involved in the receiving game. So I think there's no doubt right here he is the number one on the season for me. What do you guys think?
Oh, yeah. Running back's the most valuable position in the game, and he is – I mean, this is what Kamara was all the way back when he broke out. This is what James Robinson is doing. This would be he would be a first-round draft pick in drafts if you knew what he was going to do. He has been incredible, and, we all were kind of like, what are the Jags doing when they're getting rid of Fournette? And, the coaching staff knew what they had in James Robinson. They knew they had a talented guy. They didn't need to pay Fournette all this money to keep him around. James Robinson's been great.
Yeah, Shad Khan is playing 4D chess out here. with the drop of Fournette and the undrafted pick of James Robinson. I mean, it was a shock to fantasy owners and a shock in the whole fantasy community. Was it really a shock for the Jaguars? Maybe they did know what they had in letting Fournette go and with James Robinson. James, you said it really well. He'd be a number one or a first round pick. Probably will be next year, because this guy has been great. The passing work is what's really astounding because he's only crossed 100 yards twice. Now he hit 99 last week against Houston, so basically give it to him. So 3 games where he's hit 100 yards, but his passing work, that's what keeps him afloat pretty much. He's been terrific.
Do we think that, first of all, do we know what has happened with Raquel Armstead? Like, I know he was placed on the COVID list at the beginning of the season, and I have not heard one single thing about him, but do we think if he was actually playing right now that he would have stolen this job, or it would have been more of a timeshare, or do we think because of his absence, this just led the way for James Robinson?
So far, NFL Fantasy still has him listed on the COVID-19 report. I think he had some pretty serious symptoms when he was diagnosed. So I think they're easing him back. He's had 2 bouts with COVID-19.
What?
Yeah.
Is that possible?
I think so. I may be reading this wrong. However, I don't think I would see a timeshare. Or are you talking about if he never got diagnosed? Say beginning of the season.
If he was healthy beginning of the season, do we think James Robinson would have the breakout he's having?
Who's to say? That's a tough one.
I think yes.
I think so too.
We've seen Raquel Armstead before, and nothing really special out of him. Yeah. You've never seen him?
Clearly, I don't remember him.
Drafting him second round last year, but
of course.
Yeah. I think it still wouldn't have been any question, James Robinson. But he's been phenomenal for you. Like you said, Joey, he's just getting all of that receiving work, which is phenomenal to see, especially with fantasy football switching gears to PPR format. So yeah, James Robinson looking like a great pickup and looking like he could potentially be an early round draft pick next year.
Yeah. Do we think he finishes the season as an RB1?
Yeah, for sure.
But that's going to do it for today's episode. Those were our top 5 waiver ads of the season. To go back real quick, at number 5, you have T. Higgins, wide receiver from the Cincinnati Bengals. Number 4, Mike Davis, running back from the Carolina Panthers. Number 3, Justin Jefferson, wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings. Number 2, Justin Herbert, quarterback from the Los Angeles Chargers. And at number 1, James Robinson, running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, hey, leave a comment below of who you think your top waiver ad of the season was, and if you agree with us or if you disagree with us, please leave a comment. We love that sweet, sweet engagement. But feel free to leave a comment. Feel free to grow up, but be sure to get guffed.
Thank you.